Hi, everyone, again. And hi, Carolyn. Thank you for joining us. It's so good to see you. And
Hi, everybody.
I just mentioned we have a huge amount of people on the management console, so I'm really excited. I just mentioned to everyone that not only are you the IT Woman of the Year, but you are also the new business role model of the year. And so I wanted to say, wow, congratulations. And I'm going to shut up and let you talk. And I can't wait to hear all about you. So thank you for
Oh,
joining us.
thank you so much for the very kind introduction. And it's such a privilege and honor to have so many women and male allies in the quantum space join me today. I'm really grateful to be here. And today I'm really excited to talk about a topic that I'm really, very passionate about. And it's really about transformational leadership. I know that we hear the word transformational all the time, and we hear the word digital transformation all the time, but exactly what is it and what are some of the attributes that we should be paying attention to? I guess, when I really think about what transformation really looks like. It's really about being able to, be innovative, being first in the industry to do something really different. And it's about the leadership skills behind it that help promote that. I mean, one of the most pertinent things that I've heard of in recent years is actually the World Economic Forum, where Pierre Netame had talked about why digital is the main reason that more than half of the Fortune 500 companies in the world have disappeared. And if you can imagine, just that one word, digital, is the reason as to why some of the largest firms are as powerful and amazing as they are, and why some of the traditional firms have actually, just been swept away. When we think about organizations out there that once used to be household names, such as Kodak, Polaroid, Blockbuster, Sony, Atari, Borders, and so forth. A lot of them have really failed to innovate and transform themselves to the pace that we're expecting in this new digital era. And for that reason, I would say that, a lot of these organizations probably didn't have the right transformational leadership to take them through what was Industry 3.0 into 4.0. And we now know where a lot of those organizations are. So, in my mind, I think that there are 10 top qualities of what makes a transformational leader. The first one is actually really about adaptability. And why do I use the word adaptability? Well, it's really about knowing our world is changing constantly. And I think 2020 really took everybody by surprise. I don't think any one of us had predicted that there's going to be this huge pandemic and how this was going to help transform the world in ways that we never thought that we would. Who would ever think about working from home would be the norm? Who would ever think about home-based learning? Who would ever think that, we would have to worry about things like ventilators, masks, and hand sanitizers, and so forth. So for this very reason, being adaptable as a leader is really, really important, because you need that leadership to help drive and navigate you through what is the new normal into what I hope is going to be a better normal. On top of that, I think another quality that I would like to see in a transformational leader is actually the quality of curiosity. And why do I say that? Well, I think that being curious is something that's really very important, because if you're curious, you would then be able to want to adapt yourself. You want to be able to learn new things. You want to be able to ensure that, you're across things that you haven't been exposed to before. Having that level of curiosity also means that you're quite tapped into wanting to learn what are some of the digital new opportunities that are available with the latest technology. How is this going to disrupt my company? What does this mean for my industry, and so forth? So that level of curiosity is something that's highly important. On top of that, I think someone who is a visionary is really, really important. Being able to be a leader, to set out what is a very clear vision, is something which is important, because you're here to steer a ship, and that the whole ship includes your middle management, your operational staff, and everybody else in between. And being able to have that level of vision, to share that passion, to articulate what that vision is, that mission, and also getting everybody, on board together with you, to have that shared vision to get from A to B is highly important. Now, I would say that a leader that understands the big picture and also understands where you need to change is something very critical. And I think that this is even more so coming out of a pandemic, going into what that hopefully that better world is going to look like. Being able to, I guess, understand the big picture is, critical, because you want to be able to understand how to join the dots. Where are some of the latest industry trends? Who are some of the startups that are going to really impact me? For example, what does quantum actually mean in this new world for our industry? So being able to understand the big picture and also articulate and understand what needs to change is important, because you don't always have to change everything. However, sometimes you do need to always think about a continuous improvement in terms of being able to adapt, being able to leverage on the latest digital opportunities to improve your organization and also help your people. Now, a leader also really needs to have a great storytelling ability. This is because if you can't tell a story well, it's difficult to get that buy-in. It's difficult to convince your stakeholders as well as the public, for example, or your internal, employees as to, what that vision looks like, how you're going to adapt and navigate through this new world. So being able to tell a great story to get people on board, to get them to really buy in and understand what this is all about and where your vision and mission stands and how you're actually going to lead them through this is really important. So as a leader, being able to have clear and concise communication is really important, because without it, it's hard to tell a good story. Without it, it's hard to share a good vision. So in that perspective, I would say that in my humble opinion, a good storyteller and a good communicator is so important. Wouldn't you want to be able to work with a leader that you can look up to, that you feel that, oh, wow, this is someone that I can really get behind and really believe in and get really excited about coming into work every single day. Moreover, having some charisma is something really important in my mind. I know not everybody has that, but I think it's something that can be nurtured. And why is that? I think that the old school leader is probably, dead. I think a lot of people are looking for something new, a transformational leader, someone who's a servant leader, as someone who's being able to be charismatic in terms of the way that they work with people, the way that they connect with people, someone who really understands what true connection is from human to human and isn't just there to, really be a dictator or someone who's kind of, looking at the world in, I guess, what was 20 years ago, but someone who's actually living in the now that really looks into the future, understands what the current challenges are, is something I think is really important. I think one of the things that is lacking sometimes in senior leadership is the ability to demonstrate integrity. I think quite often people get caught up with money, what the shareholders are saying, and also thinking about, what the KPIs look like and what revenue looks like. But in reality, I think a leader that demonstrates integrity and shows compassion is something that is really, what we expect from a transformational leader. And why is that? I would say it's because without integrity, it's really hard to believe your leader. It's hard to get behind somebody if you don't really understand who they are, what are they about, and if what they say has any substance behind it. So integrity actually allows people to want to be closer to you, to believe you, to understand exactly where you're coming from, and to know that this comes from a really good place. Another quality that I would really expect a transformational leader to have is actually to put the people and the teams first, and also putting the culture first. I'm a really, really big believer, and also someone who's benefited from an organization that had put culture first before everything else. And this saying that culture eats, strategy for breakfast is absolutely true. In reality, it's so hard to find an organization these days that has a really awesome culture. I myself have stayed in a consulting firm once for 12 years. I never thought I'd be any organization for so long. And I stayed in an organization for 12 years because the culture was really awesome. So being able to have a great culture is something which I think a lot of employees are really craving for. And if you're lucky to find a transformational leader that really spends time and effort nurturing and making sure a good company culture exists and putting their teams first is something which I know lots of people are looking for. And if you're a leader, I really would encourage you to really think about what are you doing to put your teams first, to really shape that culture and make sure sure that that's the strongest part of your organization. Having a good strategy is one thing, but it means absolutely nothing if people are not passionate about it and the culture is toxic. So for that very reason, I would say that culture is just so very important. And I think in a world where there's robots and there's AI and there's all sorts of amazing technologies such as quantum, that's all fantastic. But at the end of the day, we are all human, and we all want to come into work with people who are inspiring transformational leaders, but also people that we really respect and love and are part of a team, and that you feel the absolute spirit amongst your team. And that's where culture really comes in. I guess my next 2 points are 2 more qualities, my 9th and 10th quality about what makes a transformational leader. The 9th is really taking the teams along the journey and really upskilling them. I know that many of us are IT specialists here. Many of you are fantastic with, quantum computing and the like, and there's so much I can learn from you all. But in reality, I think that the world needs to change in terms of upskilling people. Many people out there are losing jobs because of COVID, and even before COVID because of the advancements of technology. I do not feel for a moment that we can possibly advance as humankind if we leave people behind. I'm a very big advocate for digital inclusion. And I feel that all of us IT professionals really need to hang together and really be an advocate for upskilling people around us, and in particular, underrepresented communities who do not always have the opportunity to be upskilled easily because of financial reasons, because of access to technology and so forth. So I really want to encourage all of us IT professionals to make sure that digital inclusion is something very important to us, from underrepresented communities in your countries to other developing countries around us who really could do with a hand. And, technology really doesn't mean anything unless people understand how to use it and how to leverage it. And that's why it's so important for us to really champion upskilling, not just for our employees, but also the wider community. And I really want to encourage all of us to do our part, whether it's pro bono digital upskilling to charities, to nonprofit sectors, being able to have, opportunities to, shape and encourage other IT peers as well to do the same is really important. Now, if you're in a leader and in a position to help think about the budget for your learning and development, I think, you really need to pay a lot of attention as to what can you do, not just for your IT professionals, but everybody throughout your different departments, throughout your different siloed departments especially, and also your rank and file employees, to make sure that they have the right digital skills to help future-ready your organization, but more importantly, to future-ready their careers as well, so that they actually have an active part to play in the digital era and beyond that. The last area of what I think is a really important quality of a transformational leader is actually the ability to make difficult decisions and actually take risks. Now, I know that sometimes, especially in the COVID world where people are faced with lots of challenges, making difficult decisions, sometimes having to be, face retrenchments or lose jobs, it's a really tough situation, and I really feel for everybody. And I think a transformational leader is someone who isn't afraid of making a difficult decision. I think he needs to be open to hear different perspectives, but at the end of the day, to not just sit on the fence, but actually be able to make a difficult decision together with his leadership team and be open to perspectives and be able to articulate why they came up with, that particular decision, no matter how difficult it was. Because I think sometimes employees really need to understand the rationale behind why decisions have been made. And this is because they really need to understand, well, why did they think about this? How did they derive this particular decision? What are the things that they consider? And, what are some of the risks behind some of these decisions? And how are we going to mitigate this? I think this is really important because we are really coming out of a difficult, challenging year. But also the next few years, we all know it's going to be challenging in itself, from being able to survive this pandemic, move forward into a new world, ideally into a better world. But also, coming out of what's a very deep recession is going to be very hard for a lot of people. So being able to be that leader, to hopefully steer your ship, sometimes come across turbulent times and make difficult decisions, but articulate through your clear communications why decisions had to be made, what was the rationale? How do you intend to mitigate on these risks? And what other considerations that they really need to consider? So if I had to really quickly summarize on those 10 qualities, the first one is about adaptability. The second is about curiosity. The third is being a great visionary, followed by being able to understand the big picture and what needs to change. The fifth being a great storyteller and communicator. The sixth being very charismatic, but also having integrity and also having a great culture where you put people first, followed by being able to take your teams on a journey and upskill them, as well as being able to make difficult decisions is something that's really highly important. Now, apart from having these 10 qualities, I would say that, digital transformation is something that is, going to be challenging for all. I think even before COVID-19, there's lots of organizations out there trying to understand what transformation really means for them as well as their industry. And when I think about digital transformation, I really think about a tale of two cities. And what are those two cities? The first is the leadership team, and the second is about the employees. And quite often I find that, the leadership team makes the decisions as to what the budgets are, what the KPIs are, and what the transformation investments are going to be. However, sometimes they forget to really invest in effective change management, which is really about selling that vision, getting that buy-in, showing people what the support looks like and the training and so forth. And so hence you have one city where you have a leadership team that really advocates for digital transformation and they see the value behind it. However, sometimes you have a completely different city called the employee city, whereby you don't necessarily understand, why are we doing this digital transformation initiative? What was the rationale behind it? Is this automation going to, put me without a job, for example? What does it mean in terms of job augmentation and so forth? So, I think it's really important to close these two cities and make them into one, whereby as a transformational leader, that you're able to articulate very clearly, why are we going on this digital transformation journey? What does it mean for us as an organization? What does it really mean for you as an employee? And being able to take that time to really think through the different personas in this digital transformation journey, where you can say, okay, if you're such and such employee in this department, this is what this means, and this is the benefits. However, we recognize these are the pain points, and this is how we're going to support you. And if you sit in this other part of the business, this is what it means. This is how we're going to make things better for you. But we appreciate there's going to be a learning process. There's going to be some painful changes initially, but we admit that we're going to allow for some level of productivity dip as soon as we go live. But we're going to support you through this journey. And, a few months after we go live, we are going to make sure that you still are on board, that you still have a job, and we're going to continue to support you through this journey. And if you can do that as a transformational leader, you are going to have a lot more success in terms of implementing any kind of transformation within your organization. Another area that I really wanted to speak about is actually being able to think through about addressing the disconnect between leadership and staff. And I think a transformational leader is someone who can do this quite well. So what does this mean? It's really about being truly open to feedback and ideas, and really have a mindset about continuous learning. I think that being able to have continuous learning, but in continuous improvement is something that's really important. And quite often, your staff, your people, especially at the operational level and middle management level, have extremely good ideas. They know what the pain points are. They speak with your customers very often. They work in, day out, and they know exactly where the inefficiencies are, where the opportunities are. So being able to set up some form of a process where people can share feedback in a safe environment to help improve your organization is something that's incredibly important. In addition to that, I think it's really important to make your strategy as well as your digital transformation journey very relatable to all parties in your organization. If you can't articulate well what the benefits are, and if you can't show very decent support to ensure these people can be on that journey to make it as pleasant as possible and as frictionless as possible, then you basically have failed in terms of getting their buy-in. I think the most challenging thing of digital transformation, whether it's through quantum or other parts of technology, is actually stakeholder buy-in. So being able to make sure you have the right change management investment is absolutely critical, as well as the right quality data for anything that you do. I also really believe that, it's really important to ensure that you have the ability to be agile as a leader. I think that having the agility, having the adaptability to help navigate you through difficult and challenging times is something which is highly important. I think that if you try to stick to your guns too much, sometimes you could actually be proven wrong. And I think that this year in particular, lots of organizations have had to, accelerate their digital transformation journey a lot faster in a short period of time than what they anticipated because of the impacts of COVID-19. So I think as a leader, being able to be adaptable and agile and be able to lead your teams and take them through that journey is really, really important. So I guess, I'd like to leave some time for Q&A. And what I'll do now is probably just wrap up a little bit more about some of the key takeaways from today's session. The first is about being able to be prepared to adapt your leadership style. I think as a leader, we all can't think that we're perfect in any way, shape, or form. We really need to improve all the time. We really need to think about continuous learning and commit to being a lifelong learner. Only then can your leadership skills be relevant in this new world. On top of that, being able to have the guts to ask for anonymous 360 feedback is something which I think is really important. If you can't take the truth, then I think it's really difficult to improve as a leader. So being able to provide a safe space for people to provide honest feedback to you in an anonymous 360 is something which I think is important. I know some leaders are not a big fan of that, but I think there's nothing wrong hearing what people have to say. You don't always have to agree with every perspective, but I think it's really important to be open to it. On top of that, I think, I'm a really big fan of having multiple mentors. And why is that the case? In this challenging world, we will come across lots of different challenges. I myself have easily 6 to 8 different mentors, and I go to them for different things. Some of it is about, challenges as a working parent. Sometimes it's truly about, having mentors in a digital domain. Other times it's about people who have been in the workforce for 20, 30 years, who have a wealth of experience that I can learn so much for. On top of that, I'm also a very big fan of reverse mentoring. And why is that? I'm a big fan of reverse mentoring because I feel that as a leader, I need to understand every generation in the workforce. Because especially if your organization has lots of different generations that you have to work effectively with, being able to understand their values, understand what drives them, what really motivates them, and being able to be that leader to really ensure that all generations in the workforce feel included, but more important, feel a sense of belonging. So hence, I think reverse mentoring is fantastic. I love spending time with really young people. I love time spending, with people who are a lot more experienced than me. There's just so much that I can learn. And, as a mother of 2 young children, I learn every day from my children, from the way that they look at the world, from the values that they have, from the way that they use technology. It's so different from someone of my generation. So I really think it's just so important to be able to, welcome mentoring, be a great mentor, but also have reverse mentoring as well. Last but not least, I really, really think that to be a transformational leader, we really need to have 3 things. One is passion, being able to wake up and do what you're truly passionate about because that's how you really excel. Having purpose to understand what really drives you, what are you really aiming for, what is your life goal and achieving it. And thirdly, thinking through what legacy you want to leave behind as a leader. I think that this is so important because we all spend so much of our time and our waking hours trying to work, be a good parent, trying to be whoever it is that we need to be in our multiple roles in everyday life. But being able to leave a legacy that you can be proud of for yourself is something so important. And I really hope that you can join me on this journey about finding your passion, your purpose, as well as your legacy. So on that note, I just wanted to say thank you so much for joining me today. I really welcome, your questions, and would love to spend quite a few moments with you during some Q&A. Thank you.